So for a lot of people, being sub 25 or sub 20 comes in a matter of months, or depending on how much you practice, it might come in a matter of years, and it's just a matter of time, and you know you're going to get there eventually. However, sub 15 takes another level of dedication and another level of quality of practice. So certainly there are things that can help you, like learning COLL or winter variation and so on, but ultimately those are not what is going to help you get sub 15. So during this video, I will be going over some of the most important tips of what I think it takes to be sub 15. Number 1, solve any F2L case in 8 moves or less. So here's a corner, here's an edge that we want to solve. And so what some people do, which is actually a really bad habit, is to not even look at how they are in relation to each other and just take out the edge. So you notice in this case, you end up with this. So that's already been 3 moves, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what you need to do is be able to take out pieces so that they will pair up. So this is just one way you can take them out, but that's a pretty bad way considering afterwards you'll have to rotate. So what you should do is something like this, which is one of the most efficient ways if you happen to be facing this way. But if you're facing over here, then what you can do is something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that leads into this pair, which actually I don't think you can solve in 8 moves or less. Like anytime they're both in the slot, but one of them's oriented wrong, then you can do 11 moves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this one you can actually do in 8 moves or less, but the algorithm for that kind of hinders look ahead. So I'll use it sometimes, but generally I'll use the 11 move solution. And then the other exception is this one. Now this one, a lot of people do know how to do it in 8 moves or less. However, sometimes you might need a better solution that doesn't have rotations like this. And then one of the exceptions is this one, where people tend to do 11 moves, but again, you could do it in fewer moves. So how I normally do it is like that and set up this case, which I think is 11 moves. But then the other way you could do it is like this, just set them up and ignore the pair at the back, insert and insert the pair at the back, which some people do as well. So those are some of the exceptions. I'm not sure if there's any other ones, but generally you want 8 moves or less other than those cases. Okay, so with that in mind, before we move on, I'm going to do an example solve where I just did a random hand scramble where it looks pretty bad. So a lot of the corners are in here. So I just want to show how 8 moves or less applies here. So I just finished the cross and now let's start. I'm going to do this one and this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, and then we have, I'm bad at look ahead, we have this one and this one. So we could do it like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this one and this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And lastly, we have this exception case. However, we could do it in 8 moves or less if you really wanted to, which would be like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Number 2, drill algorithms to become more consistent. So with a lot of the more special finger tricks algorithms, or like, for example, G perms and A perms where you need the D2 flick, a lot of people tend to mess up on these, especially if they haven't practiced it a lot. This is where drilling your algorithms really becomes important. So it's not about really how fast you can make each of them. A lot of it will come from practicing during solves. What you want to do during drilling is to identify where you have problematic points in certain algorithms and drill it so that that point no longer becomes problematic. So for this G perm, I have a pretty special finger trick for it, which is like this. Which is pretty complicated and you might say is easy to mess up. Because I think, yes, it is like theoretically really easy to mess up on this, then I've been practicing it a lot to make sure that I don't really mess up on it. And now it's like a pretty fast algorithm of mine, even though it has that massive regrip. So for some people's end perms, they use the one where you rotate and do all this stuff with RUD. Now, I'm not sure what the algorithm is, I don't know it, but I use the RUF ones. So for example, one of them's like this. So I find I tend to mess up more on the RUD end perms where you rotate first. Now the RUF ones, even without the rotation, might be slightly slower, but I think they're really consistent, and end perms are so rare that you'd rather just not have a bad solve rather than try to go for some crazy algorithm that you rarely ever get to practice because end perms are super rare. So if you don't practice it much, you'll just start messing up your end perms, which is why I like the RUF version, which goes like this. And then there's the other one, which is like this. So for this OLL, it's one of the easiest OLLs. It's just like RU to R prime, sledgehammer, then RU to R prime again. The problem with this one is that I found that a lot of times I would mess up the algorithm because my thumb here wouldn't hit the right spot. It would like miss for a second, then I have to redo it and then go like that. So something as simple as that, as missing where my thumb is going, is really important to practice it. Because if you think about it, I could be losing as much as like half a second, depending on how much I messed up. So now I can do it a lot more consistently because I practiced. So I don't know if a lot of people have this similar problem, but basically the idea is any OLL or any PLL where you have any problem with it, with consistency, then that means you should drill it right away. Okay, let me just try the thumb thing and see if I mess up. Yeah, so what happened here was, well, like I'm not really warmed up, so I tend to make some weird mistakes, but my middle finger would push on this layer. And then now when I try to do the thumb move, I would hit this and then I'd kind of miss. So let me try that again. Yeah, so that was a lot better now that I've recognized that mistake I made. Number 3, reduce F2L pauses and regrips. So I would love to talk about reducing F2L pauses again, but I talk about that every video about F2L and improvement. And every video that talks about improvement also talks about F2L look ahead because it's the most important thing. So really go look at the Sub-20 video, go look at my F2L look ahead video. I have like videos specifically just on this topic. But there's something new I want to bring to the table with regards to pauses that I think a lot of people figure out, but no one really talks about this. So it's regrips during F2L. So RU, R prime is a common trigger. Now, normally you keep your thumbs on the front so you can do R prime or R rather easily. Now, if you do R, U prime, R prime, your thumbs start on the front and end on the front, which is a pretty neutral position. So that's really natural. Now, if you want to do R, U, R prime, what a lot of people do is something like this, which feels unnatural at first and is something you'd have to practice in order to do it without a regrip. Now, if you did it like this every single time, you would have to regrip every time you want to do R, U, R prime, which is really, really often. Another time this problem is common, which I actually didn't realize I did until recently, is for this specific case. So a lot of people do it like this, which is kind of okay, like sometimes, but typically what you'd rather do is do the U2 with your other hand and start in the neutral position with both thumbs on front, and then do this move or this move at the end so that you don't have to do a regrip. Now you may have noticed the only way to do that is to avoid a natural move like this U. So once your hand is over here or over here, then you have to do a different sort of U-turn, which is like this or like this, which means for U and U prime, you have to be able to do it with either thumb on top. Number 4, use unlimited inspection time to find one pair. So I personally don't practice with inspection time. I think I would be under 15 seconds every time. Like when I record myself, I do usually go under 15 seconds. But if it would take you over 15 seconds to do a good habit, then just do the good habit in over 15 seconds. Let me just show you an example of finding your first pair during inspection. So here, I would do red into here, green into here, then orange into here, pretty simple. Then D prime, put in blue, and then D2. So now I'm looking for my first pair, and I do notice that this corner, try to track in your head where it would go during the cross. You can pause the video right now, but I'm going to start explaining. So red goes in here, doesn't affect it. Green goes in here. All I do is track the white sticker. So white sticker goes here. Then when I move the orange up, the white sticker goes here. Then when I move the blue in, white sticker will go here. So I know that this blue orange piece will go over here. Now I want to track the edge. The edge is pretty simple. It's just going to go down here and then over here. And so red, green, orange, and then D prime, blue, D2, and then this case. So that should all happen during inspection. So all of that was planned during inspection. And then during that whole time, I could have been looking ahead to this and then, yeah, and so on. All right, and here we go again. So we have green, orange already done. We have red here and blue. So what I'll probably do is F2 to move red over here, ready to go in. Then before making it go in, blue moves on top of it and then goes in here. All right, so I'm not going to track every corner and see which one goes where. I'm probably just going to track this one because this one only moves once. So when I do F2 for red and then do R prime, then this one will move over here. Then all I need to know is where the edge will go, and it's going to be right here. Now you can see that blue and blue match up over here. So it's going to be a terrible case, but at least I know what case it's going to be. And I can just do L prime U2 L afterwards. So like this, and then L prime U2 L to set these up like that. That's how I usually do the case. Yeah, so all that's planned during inspection. Now, obviously, it took me more than 15 seconds to actually look at that and explain all of it, but you can kind of see the idea. And doing F2L, for one thing, is really hard, and nobody can do it in a certain amount of time without tons of practice. So same goes for looking ahead to your first pair during inspection. With a lot of practice, you will be able to do it in under 15 seconds. Now, if you don't think you can do all of that yet, like even with unlimited inspection time, then maybe just track one corner or one edge, or just only do both of them for the easy cases. But just know that this is something you have to strive for eventually. Number 5, practice by doing untimed solves, not necessarily slow. So a common practice technique that people say to do is to practice slow solving. Now, the thing is, for most people this would work, but not for everyone. And it's really important to think of it not as slow solving, because that just means doing things slower than you normally would. It's important to think of it as untimed solving. And the reason I want to say untimed is because it can be as fast as you want as long as you don't pause. So if you can go really fast without pausing, that's how you should practice. But if you are just practicing slow for the sake of slowing yourself down, that's useful for a few reasons, like finding more efficient ways to do things. But if you really want to practice being fast at what you currently know, then besides doing timed solves, you should also do untimed solves. Okay, I'll just do red here. Blue. So this is my first pair. So I preserved it, and then here we have a weird case. All right, oh crap, I forgot to do last layer, but you can kind of see my point. So I went at a speed that was probably 4 or more turns per second. I would normally practice faster than that, but I haven't really done any solves today, so I definitely would start pausing if I went faster than that. So that's the sort of practice we all should be doing. Now, for example, if you find times where there's a back slot that's really hard to see and you find yourself doing this during a really slow solve, well, try not to do that and try to figure out the root cause of what made you pause during certain times, why you couldn't see certain things, and where you could have been looking instead that would have made it better. Next time you do an untimed solve, you try to fix those problems so that you don't pause. Now, of course, you're not going to fix it right away, but over time you will accumulate a bunch of knowledge on where you should look and all that stuff so that you can do your solves more efficiently in terms of whether or not you pause. Now, I'm just going to throw in some bonus tips that are not really bonus, but are I think everyone should know these tips. So if you don't know full OLL, learn full OLL. You don't have to know it to be sub 15. You don't have to know it to be sub 10, but obviously it does help. It cuts off a second or maybe more off your times. So obviously really, really important. So another thing about F2L is trying to practice in a way so that you don't pause much should be like a lifestyle. You should always be trying to strive to reduce your pauses, and that's at any level will be the most important thing to help you improve. And the last thing is to make sure that you practice the things that will make you better. So that includes not pausing, doing the F2L cases in the efficient ways that you know, rather than doing it in the inefficient ways that you're used to. This includes going from beginner method to F2L. You tend to be able to do beginner method faster until a certain point, but then once you get more comfortable, you will just be able to do F2L faster. Same goes for a bunch of different things. So if you're learning ZBLL and you get a certain case that you should know, but you really want to get a good time, throw away your time. Do the ZBLL because that will make you faster in the long run. I remember when I was learning really hard how to do two-side PLL recognition, I would see this checker pattern, for example, and then I would have no clue what it is. And I would think literally for 30 seconds before starting the PLL. So my PLL recognition time is 30 seconds, but I made sure I didn't look to the other side. Well, frankly, for this case, the other side's useless, but I wouldn't look to this side because that's where you would actually recognize this as an R-Perm. So it's just things like that. Those will help you improve in the things that you want to improve on much, much faster if you just apply them in your solves. Don't worry about what times you're getting. Just worry about improving. Set a goal and don't let yourself get in the way of it. Okay, so what I have here is a quick average on 4x4 using 3x3 scrambles. Now, I know that you probably know this, that you can go at a pretty slow pace and still get pretty good times, but let's just do some quick math. So I'm going to assume for you guys approaching sub 15 that your last layer ideally would be around 5 seconds, maybe even faster, but try to get it around 5 seconds. That gives you 10 seconds for F2L and cross. And I want to say that cross is about 8 moves and each F2L pair is about 6 moves, so that makes a total of 32 moves. So let's just go with 30 to 35 moves, which means that you have to do F2L in under 4 turns per second. Now, turning at 4 turns per second is not that hard for each individual F2L case. It's just that you have to know what's coming up next. That might be easy for some cases, but harder for some other cases where a corner or edge is misslotted, where you don't get it as much. So I hope you've learned things from this video, and let me know if you have any questions. You can leave those in the comments or message me on Facebook. The link is in the description. And you can hope to expect a sub 12 or 13 or 10 or something video soon. I will be trying to make that, as they will go over some different tips from what it takes to be sub 15, as I find that those barriers tend to be the hardest in cubing. Also, if you have video suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I keep a list of all the video suggestions that people have given me, so if you suggest something and I think it's a good idea, then I will definitely make it at some point. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.